importance of journalism as it relates to environmental issues and sustainability issues. And I'd also like to say that as I talk, feel free to ask questions or respond to the group that we can have a bit of a conversation if you're so inclined. So I want to relate a story that happened to me when I lived in New Brunswick. I no longer live in New Brunswick, but I went to a city council meeting one day and just randomly to check it out. I'm a civic-minded kind of guy. And in front of the council was a decision to use eminent domain to take a gentleman's building, which they apparently were just going to replace with a similar building. I didn't know the details of the issue. I can't say who was right and who was wrong. But the owner of the building, who was an immigrant who spoke with a thick accent, gave us some passionate plea about why they shouldn't take his building. And he talked about the traffic, and he talked about the additional greenhouse gases that it would emit, really cogent arguments. And the council listened politely, and then they proceeded to seize his property and go forward with what they were going to do. And this is a good 10 years ago, before the massive decline of the metropolitan daily newspapers started to occur in this country. But even though this is before the mainstream newspaper industry got decimated, there was no reporter in the room at the city council meeting. There's no one from the Home News Tribune, the big metro daily in the region. There's nobody else there. So for all intents and purposes, this issue didn't exist. If you weren't one of the 6 people in the room that night, this didn't exist. There was no way for anyone to know about it, comment on it, and know the issues. So even before the decline of the metro dailies, there was a need for hyperlocal journalism. There was a need for citizens to be able to get to all these smaller meetings that the big dailies couldn't find column inches for in the papers, and to cover them and to provide basic information to people who really cared about a level of detail lower than what those metro dailies were capturing. So, and now with the decline of the metro dailies and the decline in the number of reporters, I think it's even more important that citizen journalists like you take up the mantle and take up the challenge to provide information. So, excuse me, I commend you for that. I think it's wonderful. So, obviously, the reason we care about journalism is because in a democracy, people need information to be able to exercise the authority invested in us, the people, to make decisions. But sustainable development issues and environmental issues in particular are very difficult for anyone to understand in a democracy. They're complex and technical, so if you don't have advanced training in issues, you might not understand them. They move very slowly over time, so you can't just, they're not casually observable, so you can't just, for example, look out the window and tell if air quality has gotten better or worse this year. You might need scientists and researchers and monitoring equipment to really understand how things are changing over time. You might need nonprofit organizations or government agencies to rely on to provide data. But the bottom line is, this is the type of information that, again, unless you've got specific technical training, possibly an advanced degree, you're not really going to be able to casually observe this issue and render your own judgment. You are reliant on somebody else. And again, you can pick who you're going to rely on, but odds are you have to rely on somebody else for this information. That makes it very challenging as a citizen to understand these issues. And it also makes it very challenging as a reporter who probably doesn't have much more technical training than the average citizen to cover these issues. So how do you do it? And how do we bridge this gap to enable people in a democracy to cover important issues that might be complicated and technical, but we can't have a PhD in everything to be able to understand everything. So the press becomes very important there. But the press need to be able to become educated consumers on how to cover this stuff. Because when I said that you need to get information from somebody else, that's true, but the information exists. The problem is there's lots of information and it's often contradictory. So a couple of things you need to think about developing are 2 ways of sifting through this information are specific issue knowledge that we can develop, so you can actually become experts over time, and also just being very savvy about source credibility. And source credibility is a very important concept that's used in media and in marketing and also in the press, and that's understanding what are the motivations and what are the characteristics of a particular source. So for example, scientists who work for universities tend to be very highly regarded as sources because they have tenure which means no matter what they say, they can't be fired, so they're not economically beholden to anybody, and they're very independent, and they tend to have a high degree of credibility. And then people who work for, let's say, for-profit think tanks that are funded by a particular industry probably wouldn't have as much credibility when they're talking about that particular industry. Another way to think about the source of credibility is what kind of process was used. You might be citing a particular person, like a scientist, but you also might be citing an organization or citing a report that came out of a process. And I'll give you an example of that. In global warming, there is an organization called the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. How many people here have heard of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change? So, a few. They are the team of 2,000 plus world climate scientists, the best and brightest from every country, brought together by the United Nations. And every 4 to 6 years, they issue a report on the state of basically global warming and climate change. And they do it through this rigorous, technical, peer-reviewed, checks and counter-checks process of verifying facts, checking each other's work, public meetings, so it's all transparent. And when they come out of this it takes 3 years deliberative process, and they produce their results, it has got a lot of credibility. On the other hand, a lot of the critics of climate change, again, tend to be think tanks that are funded by an industry that might have a financial interest in saying that climate change isn't happening, or they might be a lone scientist who also is getting grants. So I can tell you that although I'm working on my PhD and I consider myself a very bright person, my PhD doesn't happen to be in climate science, so I can't evaluate the climate models, and I can't evaluate the climate science. I can't look out the window and tell you that global warming is happening. Global warming is happening or it's not happening. I have to rely on somebody else providing the information. And the reason that I believe global warming is happening and that climate change is happening is because I'm smart enough to be able to evaluate the different sources of information and figure out which ones are credible and which ones aren't. So the things you want to look for, again, are who are they beholden to? Who finances them? Are they independent? What kind of process do they use? Do they use a participatory, open, deliberative process to come up with their facts? And are they peer-reviewed in academic journals? Is another way to look. So that source of credibility becomes very important. So now I'm going to switch gears, and I'm going to talk about Sustainable Jersey, which is the program that I co-run. And it's one of the big drivers of sustainability and environmental issues in New Jersey.